The board
Kelly?
met in closed session. Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but just if people could, if you could turn, except for the board, if you would turn your video off, that way Eugene, when he broadcasts, will only show for the broadcast. You might see everyone's name tiled, but if you go ahead and mute yourself and turn your video off, that way only those will be broadcast, so your boxes will be bigger. So sorry, I meant to do housekeeping before. And I think we're waiting on Miss, I don't see Nancy on, and I don't see Del Rey on yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. Guess we can't start without them.
Okay, here, oops.
So you guys all get to see my lovely bedroom. The entire center community is invited into my lovely boudoir. There are no background filters on my Zoom, so I apologize.
And so, sorry, it looks like, so Del Rey's on now, Steve, Lee. And Kelly, just so you're aware too, when for Nancy's swearing in, she's down the hall in a private office, but she's going to walk down and want to do it in front of the camera together. So I'm going to try to do it in here, just so you know, so she can do it.
Put those masks on. 6 feet apart.
I got it. I'm ready. I'm going to crack my window.
Crack your window.
All right, let me check real quick. Hang on.
Okay.
Lee.
Yep.
You're too small. What does your background say?
It's just about the upcoming little invite that I have out. The state of social, emotional, and culturally competent teaching in CJUSD. It's an information gathering session that I'm going to be holding in February, just to learn.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Thank you.
And we have Nancy. She's connecting right now. Okay.
And Nancy, if you just turn your video on, you should be good to go.
Where do I do that?
Bottom left.
If you scroll down there, it'll pop up on the screen.
Right here, start video. I can expand that for you. Does it show you in there? No. So click on that again. It didn't undo it.
Oh, there she is. Oh, wait, what happened?
Yep, there you go.
Dr. Lee, this is Mike Jordan. Hey, if you can send me the link, I can't see it, it's too small. But if you can send me the link to that, I can put it on the website, on our curriculum instruction and special ed website.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I would love that. I will send that to you as soon as we're able to do that, for sure.
I get it.
Awesome.
Okay, if we're all ready, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order at 6:06 p.m. And the board met in closed session. No action was taken. So moving on to item number 3, public comments regarding items to be discussed in closed session. There were no public comments, and the closed session was held. During open session, we're calling to order at 6:06. Okay, if you have any comments for the Center Joint Unified School District Board, please fill out the form on the board live stream page at this time. Please indicate in the subject line the item in which you are addressing. the item that you are addressing. For example, business item A, consent agenda item 7, etc. Please send your messages as early as possible. If the items are sent during the time that the item is being discussed, we may actually close the item prior to receiving your comment, and we cannot reopen the item for discussion. So please send those comments in as early as possible. And then do we have the flag, Scott?
I do.
All right. Okay. So you can all join us. Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the
republic for which it stands,
one nation
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I don't get how they coordinate that when they have those live stream music events. How do they get it in order? I don't know. Okay, announcement of action. No action was taken during closed session. There was a resolution that we've asked the district to bring back to the February's board. So resolution number 18/19-9 extension will be brought back in February. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Miss Kelly, before you adopt the agenda, may I address the board?
Certainly.
If we would, please, it has brought to my attention that when the board or staff talks with acronyms, please say what the acronym, the actual full name of the acronym. This way it will be easier for our community members to follow along with conversation. Thank you.
Okay. Was there something specific that just happened, or is that just a general comment?
A general comment. It was brought to my attention at the last board meeting. We used several acronyms, and they had no idea what we were talking about, and they had people were doing research on the acronyms.
Okay,
Thank
sounds
you.
good. Thank you. So can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll second.
Second? General consent? Yes. Okay, so the adoption of the agenda has been adopted. And now we will have the lovely administration of oaths of office for Trustee Anderson.
And she's walking down the hall, so give me 2 minutes, if that.
Succeed.
Okay, so tonight I'm here for the oath of office for the state of California for the counties of Sacramento and Placer. If you please raise your right hand. This is for the position of governing board member for the Center Joint Unified School District. Please repeat after me. I, Nancy Anderson, do solemnly swear.
I, Nancy Anderson, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
And the Constitution of the State of California.
and the Constitution of the State of California
Against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic.
foreign and domestic,
That I will bear true faith and allegiance.
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
To the Constitution of the United States.
to the Constitution of the United States
And the Constitution of the State of California.
and the Constitution of the State of California,
That I take this obligation freely.
that I take this obligation freely
Without any mental reservation.
without any mental reservation
Or purpose of evasion.
or purpose of evasion,
And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties.
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties
Upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations.
Thank you. That's the second time today. Third time I've heard an oath of office. Thank you. All right. Organizational reports. If we could have Vanessa Mason provide the CUTA report, CUTA, which is the Center
Unified Teachers Association.
Association.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, good evening, all the trustees here in the meeting and all you people out in digital land. Okay, first I would like to thank the school board for keeping staff and students and families safe during the pandemic as a priority that you've chosen. As each of us become personally affected by COVID, it's more and more evident that no matter how safe you think you are, the virus will surprise you. In my own household, 2 of the 4 members have had COVID. I know teachers are being affected every day with members passing away or those getting seriously ill. And it's just unreal how quickly it can spread. Secondly, the CTA, which is the California Teachers Association, that is the state organization for teachers. The Capital Service Center, which is our little regional CTA office, is hosting a school board workshop on Monday, January 25th from 6 to 8 p.m. And I am cordially inviting any and all of you school board members who are interested in attending this event. It's held every 2 years, and the purpose is to improve relationships among association leaders as well as school board members. I will send out the invite in an email as soon as we log off from this meeting to you school board members if you'd like to attend. And lastly, we appreciate that you are all experiencing the difficulties of running a live Zoom meeting. Just here in the school board member meeting, how hard it is to get members logged in and everybody on mute, and some people showing their video and some people not. I mean, it's just a constant battle. And so us teachers watching right now are feeling a little entertained by your shenanigans because we go through this daily 4 or 5 hours a day, and it kind of brightens my spirits to see you guys struggle with the exact same things the staff and students are all dealing with every day. And if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Okay,
None?
thank
Okay,
you, Vanessa.
thank you.
Having no questions, let's move on to the CSEA, which is the California School Employees Association report by Marie Huggins, President.
Greetings. As we transition into a new year, it is encouraging to see classified staff members finding more creative ways to offer support and resources to our students and families. It is like there is a renewed sense of purpose and possibilities. We have had virtual book fairs at Dudley Elementary to enable families to purchase books at an affordable price to provide access to supplemental reading materials. Students can also check out library books through a safe process. At North Country, there is a virtual story time on Thursdays through Google Meets. At Oak Hill, there is a system to check out books online. Some of our classified staff are checking into ways to benefit our families by learning Spanish and other languages using available professional development resources. I appreciate that at Center, we can think outside the box and continue to provide a positive learning environment. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Marie. I don't know if Kelly's muted or we lost her. Nope, there she is.
Sorry, I need to unmute. There we go. Sorry about that. I muted and my phone was ringing in the background. Okay, so moving right along. Thank you, Marie. And now we have the committee updates. And the only committee update is the facilities report, which we all dearly look forward to, by Craig Deason. Thank you.
All right, well, here I am. Got a few things to update you on today. With our kindergarten program at Oak Hill, the work in front of the school is almost complete. The front doors are opened up and there's concrete to walk on. We do have one little spot over by the entrance to the playground and some concrete work to finish in the interior. And then at that point, in the next couple of weeks, all the work will be back at the back side of the school where they're building the 3 classrooms. even with the weather that we had earlier, we were able to get our dirt imported and compacted. So there's a nice square pad back at the back of the school site to place our 3 kindergarten classrooms. And they're actually trenching on top of the beautiful pad that they made, digging holes in it so they can add the storm drains. So that's where we are right now with the kindergarten school site. With our CTE program that's located over at the district office annex, we have revised our designs and the staff input is complete. So the staff is satisfied with all of the designs so far for those 2 buildings. And with that, the schematic design is complete. So just to let you know, the schematic design is a 10,000-foot view. You'll also be seeing that view of the new elementary school site tonight, shortly. Our next phase is a design development, and that's where they get more to the interior, and the plumbing people get involved, the electrical people get involved, and we start putting all of those components into the design. We are also working on donating 14 of the portables on that site as part of our master plan to reduce portables, which will allow us for additional funding for high school classes in the future. And there is a resolution before you tonight to allow us to donate those portables. There's also a resolution in front of you tonight to incorporate the land where the district office sets into the high school. And that will allow us to, where we're building those CTE programs, will then be on the high school campus. And that'll allow us to receive the funding for that program. Moving on to the elementary school, there is a board presentation for the schematic design coming to you in about one more presentation. We did do a page turn of all of the designs that we have so far with the grounds and the maintenance and the custodial staff, just to make sure that all of those designs are meeting the needs of the people who are going to have to take care of that site, whether it's where the playground is going, where the grass is going to be, where the planting areas, how much space between the planting areas, what the roofing is like, and what the maintenance folks are going to have to deal with. And then also with the locations of some of the things inside of the buildings that custodians would be concerned with. So that was very informative to the architect, and we'll be making adjustments to the plans based on their input. And lastly, we're still working on the purchase of the land. We're waiting on CDE, which is the California Department of Education approval of that school site before we move into the actual purchase process. And that's all I've got for you tonight, unless you have questions. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Craig. Mr. Deason. All right, moving on to reports and presentations. The first one is the audit report for fiscal year 2019-20. Do we have someone here with Crow LLP to present?
We do. I believe Jen is with us, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, Jen.
Hi, good evening.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm Jen Aris. I'm a managing director with Crow LLP, and we are engaged as the independent audit firm. And I'm actually the engagement authorized signer that signed the 4 opinions that you see in the financial statements. Crow is engaged to audit the financial statements. And I was just going to speak briefly about the audit process and then highlight a few items for you within the actual financial statements, and certainly can address any questions that the board may have. We are, as I said, engaged to audit the financial statements under generally accepted auditing standards in the United States. And because you are a school district, you're also subject to the governmental auditing standards. So we kind of wear both hats for you, if you will, as we work through this. I think that it's important for the board to understand first and foremost that this audit was conducted very differently than most audits, in that we perform entire audit remotely in the middle of a pandemic. And so the fact that we are here with you today in January presenting the financial results and that your audit report was completed in mid-December is really something that the district should be proud of, and significant kudos should go to your business office. The deadline was extended by the state by over 3.5 months, and your business office came through and completed the audit under the normal time frame. So certainly something to be proud of. We did perform our interim audit procedures back in the spring, looking at state compliance testing, assessment of internal controls, and our overall planning of the audit. We then came back, if you will, and did our remote fieldwork in the fall, focused on substantive testing and financial reporting. This year was actually a bit of a quiet year. If anything kind of went our way, there were no new significant accounting standards that were adopted this year. So you really won't notice changes in the financial statements or significant footnote disclosure differences. As part of the audit process, we look extensively at areas of management's judgment and where estimation could be involved. We also look at the qualitative aspects and the adoption of accounting policies to make sure that they're consistent with industry standard and that the disclosures within the financial statements are very transparent in what it is that's being provided and consistent with the requirements. I'm happy to report that there were no audit adjustments posted, so no changes to the books and records that were presented to us to perform our audit. So again, a testament to the business office and the well-working machine there as it relates to financial accounting. If we focus on the financial statements for just a moment, Crow actually issues 4 separate audit opinions in relation to this engagement. And the first statement is in regard to the financial statements overall. So commenting on the appropriateness of the financial statements being materially correct. That is included in the financial statement document beginning on page 1. We also issue a separate opinion on what's referred to as state compliance. So all of the compliance requirements that are outlined within the audit guide that is provided annually for a number of areas that are included under the Department of Education. And that compliance opinion is included for you on page 69 of your financial statements. We also separately audit a sampling of federal programs for which the district receives revenue. And so this year we specifically audited the National School Lunch Program and the Special Education Program. And then lastly, because the financial statement audit is performed under governmental accounting standards, we are asked to issue an opinion on the internal controls that the district has in place over financial reporting. And so I wanted to draw your attention to page 76 of the financial statements. And this provides what I think is kind of a nice summary of the results of the audit. And so if you were to look at that page, it will show you that the audit opinions, with the exception of the state compliance opinion, are what we refer to as unmodified, which is exactly what you want. It's a clean opinion, if you will. And so that is all, great news when you're thinking about everything that goes into the controls around financial reporting and all of the specific requirements for receiving federal funding. We did have one finding as it relates to state compliance. And that finding is detailed for you on page 79 of the financial statements. And this is what we would refer to as kind of a clerical finding, if you will, in that there is no fiscal impact to the district but through our testing of the compliance requirements around the school accountability report card and the facilities inspection tool, we noted, I believe, 2 instances at one site where there was a discrepancy between the rating in categories. And so, you know, again, this is what we as auditors look at as more of a clerical matter. We are required to report that to all of you in your role as those charged with governance. But as I mentioned, there is no fiscal impact. So no loss of funding to the district because of this. We did not have any findings as it related to federal compliance, and we do not have any control findings related to financial reporting to report to you. I know that I went through that fairly quickly, and I would be happy to address any questions that you may have.
Could you repeat, please, what page the finding was on? Did you say 79?
Yes, it's page 79 of the financial statements. It's in the schedule of audit findings and question costs. It's finding 2020-01. And it talks through the discrepancy in the reports that were noted for North County Elementary.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Are there any other questions? I know all of my questions were answered prior to the meeting, so thank you for that.
You're welcome.
There were a few.
Yes, and I shared, you know, should any board members have questions, please feel free to reach out to me.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Jen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to report number 2, which is the Sierra Vista New School Architect presentation. Sarah Ho and Michael Chang from AC Martin Architects.
Hello. Do you guys need me
Hello.
to share my screen, or do you have the presentation up? I know we sent the
If you could share your screen, that'd be great.
Okay, I can do that. All right. So what we have here is the Sierra Vista 12-acre site for the Sierra Vista Elementary School. And this is, you guys know, this is in that Sierra Vista development with all the new homes. And the school site kind of lays on Upland Drive. And what we've done is we're serving 800 students for this school. And we've done our parking lot with parent drop-off off to the east side of the school, where it's kind of your bigger collector street. And that's actually where all the utilities from the development kind of came in. So for us, it kind of saves money to kind of come off the side where utilities are set up kind of the most. And then we've also kind of provide a bus drop off at the south side for students that, you know, may not have the parent drop off. They can kind of come straight into campus. What we have is our admin building right here in the middle on the east side. And that has the main entry is really to the north of that admin building, with this node kind of being your main entrance into the site, mostly for the parent drop-off. So you've got kindergarten and any parents that want to go through the admin and in, that's kind of where they'll touch base with your administration staff. And so this bodes well for having kindergarten. These 2 modular buildings right here are your kindergarten classrooms, so parent drop-off, or even parents able to use the parking for walking their child into the secondary entrance here by the MPR. We also have this monumental entrance, and you'll see it when we show up the rendering, which is next. This is for, you know, kids that want to go directly to a classroom. Older students, we assume that we'll kind of put our older grades here to the south. And so as you go into campus, this is your admin plus your library. So we have a media center. And outside of that, you kind of have a little bit of a learning area kind of outside, so you can, you know, use that. And then we also have learning centers in between each classroom building for different, so we have back-to-back classrooms, and each classroom will have a space to go out and do different outdoor learning. We also have a bigger learning center outside of this building because there's 2 academic classrooms, academy classrooms, STEM, that would come out here and kind of do some larger activities outside. We also put the MPR kind of close to the kindergarten so that when it came to mealtime, they have the least amount of travel. Again, with your upper grades kind of doing the longer traveling, thinking about, you know, what's ideal for students. We have the parking lot that's up here by the NPR also serves as really good for food service drop off. So we kind of thought about making sure that there was really good turnaround for utility trucks and also the food service. We have the playground area, the play fields. We've supplemented what the park kind of showed in their plan. So where they might have larger soccer fields, we kind of looked at the elementary age, and we've met with the Parks and Rec out in Roseville to kind of make sure that we're supplementing with them and we're really working with their program and making sure that our park really kind of takes in what they don't and complements what, you know, we're not going to have something that they already have. We really kind of work together to create this space that's used together in the community. And then we also have your playground down here with the 3 basketball courts, some 4 squares, tetherball, and a large playground. We do also have a playground and structure set up in the kindergarten area as well. We really enjoyed having worked with Center Joint. We've kind of brought in experts from all different areas as we've gone through our space planning. There's no official users in this school just yet, but what we've done is as we worked through the admin space, we had a principal from one of the other schools that really kind of took some time and worked with us on what they would like to see and how the flow works. So let's go into some renderings for you really quickly. We've got, this is your admin main entrance here. We have it as a kind of glass tower so that you can see where your entrance is, but also for safety, we found that the visibility for admin staff to be able to see what's coming is also actually the best way to be able to act quickly. And then we've also got, like we talked about, that secondary entrance, a little monument space here so that students can come in and not necessarily have to go through the admin space. When these are all on lockdown during sessions, then, you know, people would only be able to come in through the admin, and you've got a secured location there. The back site rendering that we have for you here kind of displays what we have going on in the back play fields and the playground. And it also gives you an idea of how we're treating the classrooms. We have a lot of site to develop, and we're trying to treat a lot of students, make sure there's a lot of students that are able to get on campus. And we've looked at using modular buildings, not portables, but modular buildings to really kind of create the amount of space and amount of classrooms we need at, you know, the best affordable rate that we can. And then we also have some elevations, just kind of giving you guys some ideas of materiality. We have a really natural landscape out there, and we're kind of trying to kind of play off of that and make sure that we're kind of complementing how the site works out there. So we also have, this is your NPR building with some overhangs for outdoor eating. We're kind of incorporating some of these, you know, larger garage style doors that kind of open up your space and give students a break from that learning environment. Any questions?
Craig, was there anything you wanted to add to that or anything?
No, I think she did a great job. Thank you very much, Sarah. Yeah, that's basically what we have so far. We're moving into design development next. And then we'll go into construction documents after that. We'll go into DSA. We've got about 2 years to go. So there's a lot more to come as we work our way through this process.
So if we have 2 years to go, does that mean you're staying for another 2 years?
That means I'm going to miss all the fun. That's what it means.
Can't blame me for trying. Any other questions from the board? Okay, great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Okay, moving on to report number 3, the Williams Uniform Complaint Quarterly Reporting. Don't blink or you will miss this one.
Good evening, Mike Jordan, Curriculum Instruction and Special Education Department. And I am pleased to announce there were no Williams complaints for this past quarter. Thank you, thank you.
Any questions? Great, thank you, Mr. Jordan. Moving on to report number 4, Universal Design for Learning. And I'm just going to go ahead and announce item number 5, which is the Social Emotional Learning SEL as well. And I'm assuming that both will be presented by Mr. Jordan as one presentation.
So this first presentation, the UDL presentation, Universal Design for Learning, I'm actually going to defer my time to the great Senator Becky Lawson from the from the Curriculum Instruction Department. She's going to take over that presentation, and then I'll come back in for the following.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan.
Oh, there she is. All right.
And good evening. I see some familiar faces and some new faces. My name is Becky Lawson, and I do get to work in the Curriculum and Instruction Department and help with serving teachers and families and students. And it's my pleasure to bring Universal Design for Learning tonight. And I do have a presentation, but sometimes I will use the words UDL, and I don't mean to, but Universal Design for Learning gets a little tongue-tied, so I will do my best, I promise. And here we go. Let's see. No?
Becky, I think now that it's been defined that it would be just fine to use the acronym.
Okay. And we don't use Zoom, and so this is always interesting to me. Let's see. Why don't I see?
Does it have the green arrow at the bottom, Becky?
This, do you see what I see?
No.
No, I see. Okay, so let's see. Darn it. Vanessa's probably laughing too. Optimize
Just
screen.
a little bit.
We don't use Zoom.
At the bottom,
okay, so I'm going to do it again. Share screen. And then I have lots of choices. And Mr. Jordan's going to help me.
There you go. Now you're going to click on what you want to share.
The easiest thing is to share the screen that you have your presentation on.
Separate window.
So that's what I'm on. Oh wait, what if I?
Okay, then you have to hit your share button.
There you
and
go.
Then hit this. Now do we see something?
Yep.
Okay, good. Excellent. Thank you for your patience. I appreciate it. So here we go. Universal Design for Learning. Thank you. It is my pleasure to share tonight. Universal Design for Learning is a way to approach teaching and learning to reach and engage every student in the classroom. On the slide you see in front of you is a definition from CAST about UDL. CAST is an educational research and development organization that actually created Universal Design for Learning framework and also the UDL guidelines. And the UDL guidelines focus on the why, how, and what of learning to ensure that every individual student knows how to be an expert learner. And an expert learner is defined as motivated, knowledgeable, and strategic. This slide answers the question of why UDL. Our classrooms are filled with students that bring their own individuality to our classrooms and into their learning. They bring variable ways to exhibit their learning, and teachers are working nonstop to meet their needs, but we know that some of them are still not getting met. And so it's time to work on addressing those needs. I really like this graphic because it kind of simplifies the thoughts about UDL. So let's start right in the middle with why. Why drives all of what we're trying to accomplish. So in a specific classroom, that would be your learning target or your specific learning goal. Basically, what should I know and what should I be able to do? As we move to the second ring, that's the how. We need to plan how all students will meet the learning target. So teachers need to consider and plan for barriers that may stop students from meeting or learning their goal. And that's where the UDL guidelines come in. And those are engagement, representation, and action and expression. That last circle is what? It is creating an expert learner. That's what we're really trying to do. We're trying to create learners that are motivated, self-directed, self-reflective, and resourceful about their learning. Now, this takes a lot of time and with the help and aid of scaffolding from teachers and targeted feedback. So if you'll indulge me for a moment, I find it easy to connect new learning when I connect it with something that I'm familiar with. So I'd like to use the ice cream truck tonight. If we think back to that target slide, the one before, the why of an ice cream truck is to make money. Knowing that money is the goal, how do ice cream trucks get the most money? Well, they remove barriers. They have a very visual picture of what they're selling and they're labeled. So our non-readers can walk up to an ice cream truck and order, and so can our readers. We have budget conscious consumers at an ice cream truck, and so they usually post the prices for things so they know exactly what they can spend. We have diet restrictions for some of our consumers, and so we have dairy options and non-dairy options. And then our ice cream truck drivers have been very good with their collection of money, and they plan for variables, and they might sell water and soda and candy for those that don't even want ice cream at all. So now we get to the what. They want the most money from you. And so they have made it very easy for you to access and get what you need and move on to that next learning or that next consumer spot so that they can gain as much money as they can. So now if we go back to our educational space and we're moving into a science classroom, we might say that a science classroom's why is their next generation science standard that they're specifically working on in a unit or a chapter or a lesson. So next, the teacher would think and plan options and choices for students. So they think about the students in their classroom, and they might offer some different choices about how they can meet that standard, get to know that standard. They might, let's see, have students read from a textbook if that's what they want to do. They might have offered a few videos for them to watch instead of reading from the textbook. The teacher might actually offer some small participation or direct instruction, and students can choose to do that as their how, about how they're going to get to that learning standard. In the end, students have an option of the what. They get to show the teacher their expert learner way, how they understood and mastered the standard. So again, a teacher might plan for some options for multiple means of expression. So they might say, you get to create a poster that shows your understanding of the standard, or you might compose a song that shows your understanding of the standard, or answer a Flipgrid prompt and turn that recording in. They could even just write a short answer if they wanted to. So this is the CAST guidelines that I keep referring to. As you see, they're based on 3 principles. You have the engagement principle. That's the why of learning. You have the representation principle, or what am I learning? And then you have action and expression. So how am I going to show you my learning? This is the same model or about principles, but I think it reads a little bit easier. So the one before is usually the one that is introduced when you go to UDL presentations, and you're trying to wrap your head around it and get to know it. This reads a little bit easier for teachers to begin that process of UDL. So they, again, think about the tools that they need to make intentional learning choices to ensure that all learners can access and participate. This specific side-by-side just kind of shows the relationship to the 21st century skills that we're working on with students and UDL. What I wanted to show is that they align, they complement each other. It's not one more thing for teachers, it's not one more thing for students, that they really do support each other and build our students who are ready for the future. Usually, the first thing that happens when teachers and others get to know UDLs, they say, oh, I know UDL, it's differentiated instruction, I do that. And it's very clear that it isn't, and that's some of what the UDL training does, is it points out very quickly that they are separate. And so this differentiation scale here actually reads right to left, and it shows you how it differentiates from each other. So curriculum, if I took it out of the box, I opened the book, I just taught out of the curriculum, I could meet the middle of my class and leave the friends on the edge, unable to access what I'm bringing. So then teachers say, oh, I have specific students who need specific things to access it. So that's differentiated instruction. It's very teacher directed. It's only for a few students. And again, it leaves some of our students out on the edge. So UDL is proactive. It's teacher facilitated. It's student led or student choice. It is for everyone. Everyone can access it, and it doesn't leave anyone out. It is more inclusive. When, again, you get involved in the CAST website, you start to see different parts of implementing UDL, and this kind of sat out as an important piece for us as a district to start thinking about implementation. So this is how they describe the implementation process of UDL. And they talk about it being from need for change to expert learning about 4 to 7 years. And it takes, several years to move from phases to phases. We want everyone to get a chance to get to make a choice about it, kind of react to it, do it, and then review and decide where we need to go next. So obviously as a district, we started in the explore stage. And this is the steps that we took in the explore stage, not all of them, but some of them. Basically, it started with a professional learning at Placer County with Dr. Katie Novak, and she's kind of the front face guru. She does some learning and instruction with CAST. She's also active as an assistant superintendent in Massachusetts. And she's really the driver of UDL and get you kind of going and excited about it. Once we took our pretty much our curriculum and instruction team or our admin team to this event, we came back and started to explore it on our own site. And again, we met as a curriculum and instruction team, and we spent a lot of time looking at a definition of UDL and building a common understanding. So we participated as a professional learning community in many of our consecutive meetings to get to know UDL together and define it together. Once we took that piece, we knew it was time to say, okay, school sites, now that we've learned as a team, let's take it out to our school sites. So will you put a plan together that explores variability, removing barriers, and UDL guidelines? And those came from our definition. We also noticed that some of the UDL or Universal Design for Learning conversations were starting to penetrate or, kind of ooze into special ed classrooms, and we needed to provide some information to our paraprofessionals so they had an understanding of what we were talking about too. So right here is the specific shared definition that we talk about for Universal Design for Learning as a PLC or professional learning community at the district level. And this is the working definition that we asked our sites to work with too. You'll see the word variability, removing barriers, that it really is a shift in our thinking about how we approach planning learning and expecting learning and showing learning. And then, as I referred to before, this is what the sites did with Universal Design for Learning at the Explore stage. Again, this is some of their work, not all of their work, but some of them chose to do a book study on Katie Novak's UDL Now book. Others chose to send teachers, a group of teachers, to workshops and trainings. McClellan specifically used some of their funding to have a site coach work with their team of teachers and talk about UDL. UDL is conversations that are happening in staff meetings, their teacher work days, collaboration time. We're constantly figuring out ways to kind of push on what we understand and explore. So simply to close, what is UDL? It's a way to approach teaching and learning to reach and engage every student in our classrooms.
Great, thank you so much, Becky. Are there any questions from the board?
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. And I really appreciate the work that Ms. Lawson did in presenting kind of the extent that the district has gone to really become familiar with Universal Design for Learning, or UDL. I'm looking forward to learning more, and just very excited that, you did distinguish between, just curriculum differentiation and UDL. It's so important. It's a new paradigm. It's a way of being inclusive from the start and by design. And so I'm just thrilled to see us moving in that direction.
Becky, you did an awesome job. Put a lot of work into that. That's obvious. So thank you very much.
It really is. I agree with Dr. Lee. It really is an exciting. It's really exciting, and the work will constantly continue. So and meeting students' needs all the time is what keeps us thriving and working and pushing each day. So I appreciate it.
It is so exciting when you're just right on the cusp of something new like that, that you know is going to make such a huge difference. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Great. Thank you so much, Becky. All right, let's move on to social emotional learning.
All right. Are you able to see my screen? Yep. And you can hear me okay?
Indeed. Yes.
Outstanding.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I have a tendency to talk too loud on these Zoom meetings. So if I do so, please let me know and I will tone it down. So social emotional learning. I've been tasked with presenting social emotional learning within the Center Joint Unified School District, and just give kind of a brief overview of what it means, what it is, and where we are going direction-wise. So it's not letting me forward here. Give me a second. There we go. So first of all, social emotional learning, it's important to understand it's not just a single program, a time of the day, an activity, anything like that. It encompasses, permeates everything we do, from what's going on in the bus all the way till in the morning when they're coming to school, all throughout the day, till the end of the day. But we utilize a definition that we got from CASEL, which is the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. And I'm going to go through this definition, then I'm going to explain it a little bit. Okay? Bear with me, it is a little bit of a long definition. So social emotional learning is an integral part of education and human development. SEL is the process through which all young people and adults acquire and apply the knowledge, skills, and attitudes to develop the healthy identities, manage emotions, and achieve personal and collective goals, feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain supportive relationships, and make responsible and caring decisions. SEL advances educational equity and excellence through authentic school, family, community partnerships to establish learning environments and experiences that feature trusting and collaborative relationships, rigorous and meaningful curriculum and instruction, and ongoing evaluation. SEL can help address various forms of inequity and empower young people and adults to co-create thriving schools and to contribute to safe, healthy, and just communities. Although it is a very long definition, they've done a great job of encapsulating what this really is, and we have adopted that within our district as our definition as we move forward with social emotional learning. To give you kind of a visual of this, you can see it encompasses everything from the community all the way into the very independent interactions between students and teachers. So the main things that we are really focusing on in terms of the Center Joint Unified School District are in regards to self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, and social awareness. And again, that's from every individual interaction up to the class interaction, to the school-wide interaction, to the district-wide, and even permeating out into the communities. So our team, and we have put together a social emotional, we're calling it the task force, that we have members of all of our school sites on. We have come up with our shared vision for what this would look like within our district. So we want school to be a safe place, and we're talking both emotionally and physically. Students and staff are excited to come to school each day. Students and staff have positive relationships and demonstrate mutual respect. Students have access to support services when needed. Interventions are intentional and driven by data. Students work together, take on challenges, and they persevere. So in terms of our district, and again, when you're looking at SEL, it is at all times. So we're looking at pictures here of in the classroom, in athletics, activities, at recess, at all interactions throughout the day, and not just teachers and admin and students. It involves all of our classified staff, office staff, bus drivers, custodians. It's all the interactions, everything that is going on throughout that day. And it is a constant cycle of learning through those interactions. And many of those are guided interactions. We're going to talk about that coming up here in the next slide. So this is our cover of our multi-tiered systems of support blueprint. Without going into this too deeply, that would be a whole nother presentation. We have SEL embedded throughout all of our school sites, our district office, throughout the entire plan of our blueprint. And if you have a chance to go through that, you'll see where it's marked out in there so that you can see that again, it permeates everything we do. This slide is representing, it's not at certain school sites or certain grade levels or with certain students. It is all school sites within our district. It is all students, all staff within our district. And to give you some examples of some things that would fall under this that are more guided in terms of activities or programs. Again, we have that SEL task force that represents members from all of our school sites, and we come together monthly. It's less now than this COVID time, but when we get back to the school sites, we'll be able to meet again on a monthly basis. And we're continuing to forge ahead in this whole social emotional realm, working with our students. We also, many of us participate in the Sacramento County Office of Education's SEL Community of Practice, where they're bringing in outside speakers. We're looking at book studies. We're looking at what is going on in this domain, this area, and what are some things that we can bring into our school to improve what we're doing. We have PBIS, Positive Behavioral Interventions and Supports programs at many of our school sites that encompass many of the aspects of what we're talking about, everything from restorative justice, restorative circles, again, how we interact with each other. All of those are things that go on within those programs. Center High School is working on a school culture through a grant, really taking a hard look at the school culture and how we interact with students. Again, not just teachers, but everybody. And how can we improve that culture so it is a much more positive, inclusive culture for everyone, for all students. We have Second Step at many of our elementaries in our middle school, which is it's a character building program. It's a full program that talks about character development and decision making and so on and so forth. Again, we have counseling service, which also falls under this umbrella. Everything from our ERMS, educationally related mental health services, down to our counseling services at each of our school sites. We also have brought in trainings throughout the district for trauma-informed instruction, helping teachers to understand what's going on in students' lives and how we can better meet their needs in the classroom. It's not just about taking the shrink wrap off the curriculum and teaching. Those days are long over. It's a whole different time now where students are coming in and we need to meet them wherever those needs are and help them through. We also have the Leader in Me, which is another character development program at one of our sites. We have partnered with the Colonels program, which is out of Harvard University, which these are set lessons, but they also permeate throughout the day, involving social emotional learning tasks and activities that would fall on, again, under that domain. So again, this is a very brief overview, but I just want to stress, oftentimes people think of social emotional learning as it's a prepackaged program. It's one thing, or it's a time of the day that you would pull people out. We're going to do our social emotional activity now, and now we're going to go back to regular school. That's not how it works. It permeates everything. Going back to the initial description or definition, social emotional learning is an integral part of everything we do, of our entire educational program. Are there any questions that you have about what's going on within the district?
I do, of course. So I'm curious about things like restorative justice and other programs that we've had at various schools, and there've been like, it's not consistent throughout the different schools. There's different programs at different schools. So how, first of all, has this supplanted any of those programs? Have they been eliminated in lieu of this program? And secondly, how have we incorporated the social emotional learning into the existing programs that we already have?
So it hasn't supplanted, it hasn't supplanted another program. Social emotional learning, it's not a program that you would go buy through a curriculum, magazine, as an example, like you would maybe an English curriculum or something. Think of it more as a philosophy that encompasses many, many programs, many ideas, many philosophies, and it's about how you're setting up your culture of your school and how, every interaction that goes on. Now, there are some programs that fall under that domain, such as restorative justice, Second Step. None of those have been supplanted. None of those programs that you mentioned have been replaced, I think is what you're getting at. Have we replaced Second Step with this? No. That all is part of this whole overall program.
And I think, to jump in, Mike, I think what it also does is it allows us to align programs that help us support SEL in many different ways. So
Correct.
It's not one thing comes in and we push something else. We're trying to get, and you've probably seen that graphic where you have all the arrows going in the right direction versus all the arrows going in different ways. And what we're looking at is what can help us as we move forward, because what we're also seeing is what we might think is a great way to support SEL yesterday may not be the same one we need today. So we're trying to open our toolbox for it. But Mr. Jordan hit on another comment there, that it becomes a way of thinking. It's not just cracking the book and doing I did my Second Step lesson and therefore I've checked that box off. It's how we treat students, families, how we accept them, how they come onto campuses, how they're welcome to campus. And it just is the UDL. This is a process that we're working through, but we're trying to identify how do we continue to bring more and more support and meet those students and those families where they are and help them progress through the educational system in a welcoming, collaborative way.
Mike, I know from experience with my own family, this program is working tremendously, especially at the schools that I'm involved with. But with the autism spectrum being expanded and with it being such a large spectrum with kids at every level of it, this is a program that's just desperately needed, not to mention the kids that are coming from homes that are broken and not necessarily functioning real well. They just need that extra support along the way. And one adult can make such a huge difference in a child's life, and whether they have a positive comment for that child in the morning or a negative, comment, it just sets that child up for the whole day. And I have so much respect for you guys for going out there and finding these programs and finding these attitudes, if that's the way you want to phrase it, because it's not a program, but it's an attitude of the whole district, and bringing them in and working them into our system. It's just a wonderful experience for all of these kids. And I just applaud you for doing it. Thank you.
Thank you. And it really is maybe the most important thing we do. And it's not necessarily quantifiable, but helping kids learn how to manage their emotions. That is a huge part of not only being a kid, being an adult and being able to be successful out in the world.
Yes.
Social awareness, self-awareness. You're not going to be able to take a test necessarily and quantify those things, but they are absolutely vital for all of our students.
Mhm.
So this is, it is incredibly, incredibly important.
In a world that's putting so much stress on these kids from day one. I mean, even, first grade, these kids are stressed out and they just need that extra special support.
Mike,
Absolutely.
so I know you mentioned trauma-informed learning, and I'm curious what kind of training we've gone through as far as adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, which is all about what we do at Public Health. And I'm really excited that we're on the cutting edge of trauma-informed learning, and would love to hear a more in-depth presentation at a future board meeting. But just briefly, if you could talk about what we've done as far as ACEs and trauma-informed learning, that would be great.
So we've had some trainings through SCOE, Sacramento County Office of Education, in regards to trauma-informed instruction. We brought in from the National Mental Health Association, I believe it is. We brought in some speakers talking about, dealing with kids with trauma and significant trauma, and how, you can't just expect these kids to leave their baggage at the door, so to speak, and all of a sudden everything's okay. We need to help these kids to monitor their emotions, to go through these experiences, and not expect them just to ignore it. We've had them come in, and they had some guest speakers that talked about their own experiences and what they were dealing with and what was helpful to them. We've had numerous trainings along the way. I actually have a spreadsheet from every single site that's listed all the different trainings and all the different things that they're doing on their site. So I'll be happy to share that with the board. So you can get a broader idea of all the things that are happening, because there is a tremendous amount of things happening in this domain.
Right. And Kelly, you might remember, it might have been before you were on the board, Allison Collier and Tracy Dobmeyer were trained as, and I cannot remember the agency, and we were part of a grant, and we were running these early on, and ACES was the critical component that drove those lessons. That's why we had some guest speakers come in, and we had a lot of staff run through that early on. So it might be helpful too, Mike, that we'll just share out with you what you can kind of see what we've done and where we're going. And it's continual, because we've had new staff come on and some leave. So it's not just one and done. We continually need to get at that. And the neat part with the ACES piece I wanted to share was, it wasn't just teachers, it was staff. It was everyone who wanted to participate could come to it, because to Miss Anderson's point, when a student walks onto that bus, or when a student comes in that office, how are we being perceptive to address and lead with that positive, and see and recognize they might be coming with some trauma, for lack of a better word.
And that was the youth mental health first aid training, which we put staff through. We came in with a different program now that we're utilizing, that we can actually train all of our staff. We have suicide prevention trainings. We have all kinds of things around this aspect. This domain is probably the best way to put it.
And we have it even in elementary, unfortunately.
We have, I'm sorry, I
even in elementary, we have kids threatening suicide, unfortunately.
Sad but true. We started, since we've been in distance learning, what's called Beacon, which is monitoring when they're on our Chromebooks, and if they go to things that trigger suicide ideation, those kind of things, it alerts us and we contact families. And we've had quite a few contacts this year.
Wow.
At all different grade levels. That's another way we're trying to support kids in their social emotional difficulties right now, going through this time of isolation.
Yeah.
That program has proved to be very, very important and very vital in some of these kids' lives. School isn't just
even
about,
prior to COVID, the 9-year-old age group was the largest increasing demographic for suicide age demographic. 9-year-olds was the largest increasing. So, and it's, I'm sure, gotten worse since COVID.
I think there's still a notion out amongst at least some of society that school is just academics, and that's just not the case anymore. It hasn't been for a very, very long time, to be honest. We are seeing a lot of good come from the things that we're instituting in this social emotional domain.
It's almost like if education happens while you're at school, it's a good thing. But there's so many other things involved.
I think also we're reshaping and shifting, our understanding of what education is and, what really matters the most, and that we teach, whole people that, have lived experiences that we need to honor and include. And how do we do that? And how do we maintain a balance? What are our real values in this endeavor?
Absolutely.
Oops. Any other questions for Mr. Jordan?
Thank you, Mike.
Great. Thank you so much, Mike. All right. Moving on to item number 13, comments from the audience regarding items not on the agenda. Anyone may address the board regarding any item that is within the board's subject matter jurisdiction. However, the board may not discuss or take action on any item which is not on this agenda, except as authorized by Government Code Section 54954.2. Speakers shall be limited to 3 minutes. We're pretty squishy about that. All public comments on items listed on this agenda will be heard at the time the board is discussing that item. Mrs. Hunt, do we have any public comments?
I do not have any public comments regarding items not on the agenda.
Great. Thank you so much. Moving on to item number 14, board and superintendent reports. How about if we have Mr. Bruno go first, if he would like?
I don't really have anything except to say Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome back to Trustee Anderson.
Great, thank you. If we could have Dr. Lee go next.
Okay, I have just a brief report, and I want to thank Mr. Jordan and Ms. Lawson for their presentations today. I am planning a Zoom meeting on February 23rd from 4:30 to 6, so save the date. Mr. Jordan is going to be posting it on the curriculum website for the district. I'd just like to learn more about the state of social, emotional, and culturally competent teaching in our district. So I hope you'll join me and share your thoughts so I can learn more and bring back, what I find to my fellow board members and also to help inform my knowledge of where we stand. As you know, our world in our district has been through so many things lately, and it's just super critical that we maintain, this push and this commitment that we've talked about here today, not just to social and emotional learning, but culturally competent learning as well. And all three of those things, they really go together. They're not separate. It's not an extra. It's not something new. But what we do have are new frameworks and ways of looking at and understanding and having a common language around it, so that all of our students are getting the social, emotional, and cultural supports that they need. And I also want to recognize Monday, we had Martin Luther King Day, very important day in our nation and in our history. And I really would love for some of the teachers and other members of the district to just send me information or slides or share with me the things that you did to teach your students at all levels about the civil rights movement and the importance of it in our nation's history. Really enjoy that. And that's the end of my report.
Great, thank you, Dr. Lee. I do have one question, just a clarification on your Zoom meeting that is on February 23rd, 4:30 to 6 p.m. You are wanting district staff, teaching staff to participate in that Zoom meeting to share perspectives, correct? So
Yes,
we need to-
staff and teachers are all welcome. Anyone who would like to share their perspective is welcome. But I am focusing on staff and teachers because that is, who I'd like to hear from.
Yeah, so if we could please get Marie and Vanessa to share that information out to the respective labor groups, that would be fantastic so that we can get a really good turnout for that event. So thank you so much, Dr. Lee. And if we could move on to Mrs. Anderson.
I really have nothing other than I hope everyone does have a happy new year, and this, year we get rid of COVID and can get back to a normal school year. These kids desperately need it. They definitely need that peer reinforcement and socialization.
Great, thank you. Mrs. Pope.
Thank you, Trustee Kelly. Last month, I mentioned that I thoroughly read the school plan for student achievement, but I also read the student accountability report card. And reading these two documents, I saw one major commonality, and that is MTSS, or multi-tiered systems of support. And now having all schools using or participating in MTSS is a positive step for all our students, as we heard today. And I want to reiterate, Dr. Lee, thank you, Ms. Lawson and Mr. Jordan, for this information. It was so helpful. It was an eye-opener. So thank you, and thank you for your participation in MTSS. Though McClellan High School does participate in MTSS, but they have an advantage due to their smaller class sizes. They also integrate in their program, Get Focused, Stay Focused with their students. And that is a 10-year career life plan and a skill-based education plan, which I think is very important for students. So I commend McClellan to also incorporating that into other school curriculum. Is Lisa Coronado still available, or is she still online? I do have
yes.
I do have a question if you're available.
I am.
Okay, so I know you've done this several times, but there has been some community chatter about how we are spending the $4.6 million $6 million of COVID money. And also, how are we spending the money saved from operating costs from March through December? And I know you've got a lot of information on, so just an overview, if you would, please.
Sure. So in the first round of COVID relief funds, we received about $4 million. There is an additional amount coming, but we haven't heard how much or when that's coming. For the first round of money, there were specific requirements that it can be spent on. And so the majority of it was spent on learning supports. About 1.8 million was spent on learning supports. And that was the Chromebooks for students to learn at home. That was extra textbooks, online programs so that they could be more easily assessed, and they can access, other curriculum supports. And then there was about 800,000 that was able to be spent on staff members that were given extra duties so that they would not be laid off. So those were our noon duties and transportation and food service workers who we didn't really need in their typical roles. And so they took on different roles. For instance, the bus drivers, drove lunches around and delivered homework packets instead of transporting students to school. So we're able to use some of the funds for their salaries. We spent about $500,000 on personal protective equipment and similar items. So that's the masks and the shields, the stickers and arrows that we put on the floor, all the plexiglass that is in offices and rooms. We were able to spend the funds on the summer school program. And so that was about $50,000. And then some counseling and mental health programs was about another $50,000. And improving telework capabilities for the teachers. So all of the workstations and computers and such for the teachers was about $200,000. So it all had to be related to distance learning, and that's what it was used for. We are saving about $1 million last I looked that we are not spending because we're not in school on things like substitute cost and certain, garbage disposal and water costs. But because the state has deferred our revenue starting February going through June, we won't be taking money in. So luckily we have that money that will get us through and pay our bills until the state starts paying us back in July. And then once that happens, the state will pay us back starting in July for 6 months. Every month we'll get a little bit more from this past year that we're not getting. We will be able to use that money. It'll be one-time money that we can use for need we have. The upcoming money that we think we're getting, and we're not sure how much, they did open that up so we can use it on HVAC and doors and windows to help with ventilation. And so that will be a priority. Did I answer all of your questions?
You did. And I did hear a comment or read a comment that from a community member that they were wondering why we weren't using this money to reopen our schools. I think there was a misconception in the community that the monies received was for reopening, but as you just explained, it's not, correct?
It was for providing distance learning for our students.
Okay, I appreciate your clarification, Lisa. I think that this would help some of the misconceptions within the community. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I do have one more question for Mr. Deason, if Mr. Deason is still available.
I am here.
Hello, Mr. Deason. Thank you for your facility report. That's part of my favorite things of this meeting. So years ago, your department, the technology department, submitted a 10-year plan to the state and presented it to the board. Are we still doing this? Are we using the plan? Have we updated the plan? Can you just give us a little overview on that, please?
Yeah, the purpose of the technology plan back in the day was it was a requirement by the state in order to, and the feds in order to receive funding. It was mainly for the E-rate funding, and that funding, we've used to do many technology upgrades in the district over the years. But since 2015, they no longer require that document. So as it is still important to have a plan on how you're moving forward with, whether it's technology or HVAC replacement or, the things that we have in our deferred maintenance plans, things like that, we always have to have a plan of where we're headed. We have not updated that document for a while, but we have made many technology improvements over the last 10 years. And as soon as we get our technology department I'm trying to think of the word, but back up to God help me, Scott, I can't think of the word.
Fully staffed.
Fully staffed. Thank you very much. That's exactly what I was looking for. We really do want to address and look forward again. And it probably won't be the way that the tech plan was laid out because it was very technical and it wasn't a friendly document at all. But we will put together some goals and some objectives that we have as we look to where we're headed with technology in the future. Very
good. So the board around 2017, maybe 2015, budgeted $400,000 for technology. And also you have received CARES money, as Lisa just explained, for technology. With all this money that you have coming in, do you think you need a consulting service to help prioritize your spending so we utilize this monies properly and efficiently?
I believe that we have the resources within the district to drive the technology in the district. We have a lot of expertise. The need for consultants is when you don't have the expertise to do it yourself. So no, I don't believe that. I believe that we've had good direction from the board on where we were supposed to be going with that $400,000, and we've met our objectives. One of them was one-to-one devices for students. You know, and another one was connectivity. We've pulled fiber lines to give us 10 gig capability. We've upgraded switches. So, you know, we have had a plan. We do reach out to our experts that we know out in the community when we need help. But I don't, you know, I can get free help when I need it.
Free help is always good.
So there really isn't a need to pay someone to help us with the folks we have on staff and the people that we've worked with over the years. We can gather all the information we need to make good decisions.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And one last question, unrelated to technology, but as I said, I read the student accountability report cards, and I find it very helpful. And one of the areas on the report card stated that the facilities updates, and I believe that's a report, something that your team puts together. There was some areas that needed a repair or replacement, door handles, dings in the door, you know, diffusers. How do you prioritize getting these things fixed or replaced, if you will?
Well, within our maintenance department, we have a program called School Dude that all the school sites can put work orders in. So when they see those deficiencies, they can put them in. And over the year, you know, we prioritize and we work on the deficiencies at the schools. The fit report is kind of interesting. It's a snapshot at a given moment. You know, so as you go through the sites, it's actually a beneficial thing for us because we go into every classroom. My maintenance folks go into every classroom and they jot down deficiencies that they see. So sometimes we don't have knowledge of throughout the year of all the deficiencies. So when we go through and mark them all down, we then turn those ourselves into work orders, and then we prioritize and go through and do those as we go. So that's kind of how it works. The problem with the way that the fit report actually tallies things is, you know, you could have 5 or 6 or maybe even 10 very small things like stained ceiling tiles, or like you said, a broken light diffuser, or a light switch that cover that's cracked or something like that. And as soon as you get to a certain amount within a school site, it all adds up with this formula. And even though our school sites are not in poor condition, it comes out with that type of report. So, you know, we either need to, you know, not mark down every little thing that can help us to create work orders and make things better, or we would need to cheat on the, you know, on the counting and the tabulating. We believe that, you know, it's best just to put everything down, find out what we need to do, prioritize, and get out there and do it. So sometimes just that snapshot that we get doesn't always give a perfect view of what our sites actually look at, if that makes sense.
It does. And saying that, do you also go into rooms that are unoccupied?
Yes.
So you do.
Yeah. So we've got, you know, we've got all those portables at the district office annex. And some of those have ceiling tiles that have been removed and fire alarms that may be hanging down because we're working on the roof, and we're not actually putting them back into usable space. But when you walk in there, there's a lot of seen deficiencies that would be marked down. So
Jill, can I ask Craig a question?
No.
Okay.
Go ahead, Nancy.
Just since you're back, the $15,000 donation, you want to explain that a little bit?
So just a point of order, these are some of these things are actually on the consent calendar. So we might want to take them up when we get to the consent, because I know it seems like we're pushing some items ahead.
Okay, that's a good idea.
If you're okay with that.
Yeah, that's fine. I just wasn't going to make him come back.
I'll be here.
So thank you, Craig, for your clarification. There was just some of the things that I was looking at on the report card. So I appreciate all your time and your honesty and your help. Thanks. I think that's it. Happy New Year, everybody. And thanks for all your help. I'm done, Kelly. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Del. Okay, so I'm going to let Scott go last. I'm going to go ahead and give my report. Couple of things. I wanted to give an official welcome to Christopher Bieber, Dorothy Stevens, Anna Jacob, and Arely Resendez, who are new employees of the district. And a congratulations to Angela Espinoza and Michael Treadwell for their promotions. And then a thank you to Catherine McKenna, who is retiring. I also wanted to give a really special recognition to Lisa Coronado and her team for the outstanding audit report that we just received. It's just miraculous to get really basically zero findings. The finding that they found was, you know, it was very, very minor, not fiscally, you know, effective. And it's just a testament to what a great team you guys are and the work that you do. And then let's see, I'm planning on taking the Masters in Governance training courses coming up here soon. So hopefully that will translate into value for the district. And then I wanted to talk about COVID numbers. Just a couple of days ago on Sunday, they reported that in the previous, it goes from 11 a.m. to 11 a.m. So the previous 24-hour period from 11 to 11, we had 669 deaths in California, which was stunning and shocking and very sad. And I'm really, you know, I hate to say I'm happy to report deaths, but I'm happy to report that the deaths are significantly less. In the last 24-hour cycle, it was 146. Now, there's always a reporting delay from the weekends, so that'll probably shoot up over the next couple of days. But to go from 669 down to 146 is pretty remarkable and significant, and it's a really good trend. And I know that we'll all think, okay, the vaccine's here and we're no longer on a stay-at-home order, everything's going to be great. But we're not at that point yet. And we're at the point where we need to stay the course, be strong. It sucked not being able to go visit family for Christmas. I mean, sorry, it was just horrible. But I knew that I had to, you know, be responsible and emulate responsible behavior. And so I did not see family. And I just hope that everybody out there understands the sacrifices that are being made by our, you know, medical personnel and people, everybody, everywhere, and that we all stay the course and get through the rest of this horrendous time together. And then on a more positive note, I wanted to, that was it. I already recognized Lisa Coronado and Craig Deason, obviously, for all your work with facilities is fabulous. Mike, all the work that you're doing on social emotional learning. We have a fabulous group of administrators, and I can't speak highly enough of all of you. So that was my report.
Turn it to me now?
Scott, Mr. Lear?
Yeah.
Yep, you're up.
I'm going to start with a happy thing. I want to wish Kelly a happy birthday. So those that don't know, happy birthday to Kelly. So I'll start that way. I also wanted to thank Lisa and the business office for their incredible work of making sure these clean audits are not always easy, but it's to the processes and procedures the whole team has. So congratulations to them. Becky Lawson, thank you for your presentation today. I wasn't laughing when you couldn't get Zoom up because I struggle with it too. So it happens to all of us. And Mr. Jordan, thanks for your continued work. And I think to me, Kelly, you hit it on the head, as it really emulates and illustrates what our district is all about, working to try to be that cutting edge and get there and work together and do what we need to do for our students and our families and for each other. So I appreciate the board's role in that. And then finally, I just want to leave with, it struck me when I heard this, and I'm not trying to say that others aren't doing remarkable things, but I want to give you an example of a story that I heard that I was like, okay, this illustrates what our staff is doing to try and reach out to families. So last week we had a meeting, and it happened to be Dudley Principal, Mr. Jackson, and he keeps calling me about different ideas he had. And he said, Scott, I've come up with a great idea. I'm doing a virtual lunch. He goes, I'm already sitting at my desk. I'm going to throw it out there, see if any kids will join and sit with me and eat lunch. So he's had over 100 kids join at different times his lunch. And so to me, that's exactly what we're talking about with social emotional learning is we're making connections with kids that aren't just around the textbook and the academics, but we're building relationships in a very remote, difficult situation. So I know all of our schools are doing things, but that one really stuck out when he said virtual lunch. And then he said, well, I'm already sitting at my desk eating my sandwich anyway. I might as well have some kids around. So anyway, I just wanted to share with the board that's an example of some of the great things that are happening in our district through one example. So other than that, Happy New Year to all. Glad everyone's back and looking forward to the rest of the year.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Lear. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll motion to approve.
We need to make a change in it. We need to pull item 1 off for separate consideration.
Okay. So do we have a motion to approve as amended?
Yeah.
And a second?
I will second.
Great. And do we want to do a roll call vote then to approve the consent agenda?
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Lee?
Yes. Yes.
Aye. Mr. Bruno?
Aye.
Mrs. Pope?
Aye.
Mrs. Anderson?
I abstain.
And the chair votes aye. The motion is passed. It was approved. It was, Carol, do you need me to repeat the motions and seconds for you?
I think we have it, Kelly, because we also have it recording, so we can always go back. But just for my clarity,
Great.
So just now you just approved 2 through 22 on the consent calendar, and you were separately considering item 1. Is that correct?
Yes, and I was going to do that next.
Okay. I was just, because I know Ms. Anderson, you abstained from 2 through 22. I just wanted to make sure the next one would be item 1. I'm assuming because it was the minutes, you might have been abstaining.
No, I thought we were doing item 1.
Okay, that's what I think there's a little confusion on that one.
Okay. Okay, so then
So do we want to go back and redo the vote for Mrs. Anderson?
No, just record it as a A.
Okay.
Okay. All right. And then on item number 1, do we have a motion to bring it to the floor?
I'll motion to bring it to the floor.
Okay.
I'll motion.
And a second?
I'll second that one.
No, go ahead.
So Trustee Pope, Trustee Bruno moved and seconded. Do we have any discussion on item number 1?
It's just I wasn't on the board for that meeting, so I have to abstain.
Okay, so we'll take a roll call vote. Dr. Lee?
Aye.
And Mr. Bruno?
Aye.
Mrs. Pope?
Aye.
Mrs. Anderson?
I abstain.
And the chair votes aye. Item number 1 on the consent agenda has been approved. All right, moving on to business items. Item number A, curriculum instruction. Center High School's comprehensive plan to maintain student academic progress during distance learning. Do we have a motion to approve?
Can we actually, Miss Kelly, if we could take a moment, we did have Mr. Ferguson to give a brief overview of what we were doing, and then see if there's any board questions.
Right.
Then...
We need to bring it to the floor prior to discussion. So if we could have a motion to either approve or bring it to the floor.
Bring it to the floor.
And a second?
I'll second.
So Mrs. Anderson, Mrs. Pope. Thank you. Any discussion? Mr. Ferguson, you're up.
Good evening, everybody. It's Dr. Lee and Mr. Bruno. It's a pleasure to meet you, although virtually for the first time. I look forward to when we can welcome you to Center High School. And Miss Kelly, Miss Anderson, Miss Pope, it's great to see you all again. If I could, I'm going to share my screen real quick, and hopefully this runs smoothly. So Center High School, I just want to first, before we begin on the plan, I just want to make a quick mention of the teachers at Center High School this entire semester have been working countless hours and working tirelessly to provide an education for our students. And as we are seeing nationally, students are still struggling during distance learning. One of the concerns that we have is a lot of students are not going to be progressing towards graduation as they would have were we in a in-person learning. So a lot of conversations and a lot of thought have gone into finding ways we can comprehensively support every student. And in doing so, we also want to come up with ways that are going to provide alternatives for students to be able to meet their needs. So we put together what is essentially, there are 4 parts to this plan. 3 of the parts we are requesting action from the board to approve, but I'm presenting all 4 because they kind of intertwine with each other and they're very interrelated. The 4 parts are going to be what provides students many different opportunities, options, and ways to recover credits from the first semester. The first is going to be credit recovery, and we'll go a little more into that later, but that's going to be our primary focus of getting every student involved in either an online after-school opportunity or with teachers who specifically are teaching a single class for with a credential to regain credits in a specific subject. We also want to offer an opportunity for students who could validate a course, whose great performance in the first semester might have been just below being able to achieve a passing grade, that if they pass the second semester, they're able to still gain credits. The board does currently have a policy about being able to challenge a course by exam. However, the policy is limited for students accelerating towards graduation. A recommendation we have here is to expand that opportunity so students would be able to test for courses they've previously failed. And that way they can be able to gain credits in an alternative way to take in the time after school if they are already inundated with a full schedule. And then lastly is going to be the reduction of graduation requirements, and that would be on a case-by-case basis and in a tiered model. If I can show in the next slide, since we've been talking tonight a bit about MTSS, the intention is to try to provide something for everybody, and the universal approach we are going to have is the credit recovery. Every student who has failed a course, initially what's required for graduation is what we are trying to focus on as our primary, the universal tier. Depending on the staffing, we'd like to expand to offer many different options into electives or other classes that students are taking so as to maintain track if they're trying to get something like from a beginning guitar to advanced guitar, for example, giving opportunities for all classes, but we would primarily focus on those that are required for graduation. We would be referring every student to credit recovery, as well as every student would be able to challenge a course. There are limitations that we have in the plan, which would students can't challenge every course or do it multiple times, but those would be what's available to every student. Then there would be a smaller group of students who would be eligible for validating a course, as was mentioned, and then even a smaller limited group of students would be eligible for a graduation requirements reduction. So real quick, the idea of credit recovery, this is what we would be focusing every student on trying to do so as to mitigate some of that lost learning during the first semester. One of the ways we would be looking to provide this would be through Edgenuity. It's an online program where students would be self-paced. Many of the courses are A through G. They would be able to earn letter grades in Edgenuity. And one advantage of this is that it's also able to be administered by any teacher. So one teacher could be overseeing, for example, like 3 or 4 subjects, if not more, and assisting students in getting through the program. We also would like to be able to put together a program where individual teachers are teaching specific subjects for 2 weeks. Those classes would be capped at about 20 students. They'd be getting direct instruction from teachers based on essential standards so as to be able to regain credits from the first semester and continue towards graduation. Validating a course, as I mentioned before, we would still first be focusing every student on credit recovery. For students who are either unable to participate in credit recovery, either because of circumstances at home or other challenges, if in the first semester they had a grade of 45% or higher, they would be eligible to validate their score. Now, colleges and universities have a similar program for some subjects, and this would be to gain credit towards graduation. If they have a passing grade in the second semester, we would like to be able to validate that first semester and get them credits towards graduation. The challenging a course, as I mentioned, the board policy and administrative regulation 6155 it is limited to students who are trying to accelerate towards graduation, and we'd like to be able to expand that just on a temporary basis so that students are, say they're a senior under class subject that they had missed a semester of, but they have a full schedule. This would allow them an opportunity to be able to take classes that are either below their level or previously failed. And that way they would still have another opportunity to regain credits to continue towards graduation. One of the things about being able to take an exam is that if they pass the exam, they would be able to get a letter grade, and the letter grade would transfer. If the class was previously a college prep course, they would still be able to maintain an A through G credit for that course so that they could still remain competitive with other students applying to colleges and universities. So then the last, which would be a reduction in graduation requirements. This would be on a case-by-case basis after we have already referred students to their credit recovery. They've attempted maybe an exam or the credit recovery. And then by determination of the counselor and the administration, we would have a meeting with the students and the parents to discuss exactly how we would modify the credits so that they would still remain at or above the state minimum. And that way we would try to make sure we're able to assist every student continuing with their progress towards graduation. So that's those are the end of the slides.
Thank you, Mr. Ferguson.
Mr. Ferguson, I do have a question. Oh, I'm sorry, you're not done. Pardon.
No, I just went back to this because it's easy to understand how they work together. I can turn the presentation off.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, these options are school-wide except for the graduation requirement, which I believe you stated is for 2021 class, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and in regards to challenging a course by exam, who writes that test?
In the current board policy, it is the department chair in coordination with the administration, which then what our intention would be is we would work with the department. So the PLC that oversees a specific subject would develop that test.
Okay, and then I'm assuming then the department chair would also submit the test?
Correct. They would submit the test to administration.
Okay, but to the students?
What we would be looking to do is to find a way with county health to administer the test in person on campus, and we would be doing that through administration where the test would be provided to us, and then we would make sure to have a secure environment so as to maintain test security and administer the test on campus. So that would be something we would take on because teachers would be busy with lesson planning and teaching. So we would try to administer that test on their behalf.
That was my next question. And then lastly, are other schools having the same options, or is this something that our district or you and your staff created?
So I know Mr. Laren, Mr. Jordan, we've also been looking at a lot of other districts and what they've put forward. In comparison, we may be a little biased. We think our plan is a little more comprehensive. We've seen a lot of districts, they're simply providing students with extra time, which creates a lot more work for the teachers this semester, trying to teach current material to go back. And we're trying to create a lot of different opportunities for students. And a lot of districts are trying to come up with various plans. Some are similar, some are not going to be as elaborate or comprehensive with multiple options.
Ms. Pope, to your point, Ms. Pope, too, this is a widespread from local districts to across the state to nationally. We're hearing of it. You're reading of articles everywhere. I've surveyed our local districts. We're all trying to combat the same thing. And I want to compliment, since I have a minute for the floor, Mr. Ferguson and the Center High staff for recognizing this early and coming up and really thinking it through before it's too late. And so I give all of them kudos. And I know it wasn't just one person, it was the team at Center High that made that happen. So thank you, Mr. Ferguson, and to your staff for that.
I have to reiterate what Mr. Lair said. I want to thank you, Mr. Jordan, and everybody at Center High School, because I know this wasn't easy. I can only imagine. So thank you for your hard work. I do have another question, actually a comment, either for Mr. Jordan or for Mr. Ferguson. So if one of you are available, if you will.
Absolutely.
So yeah, Mr. Ferguson, there has been chatter throughout the community that Center High School in particular has changed their policies and added additional homework to the students. Are any of your departments within your school doing that to increase grades for failing grades or adding additional homework?
I can just say no. I will say that if anything, teachers may be offering alternative assignments, options for students to be able to catch up, but nothing that is required or extra. Teachers are going out of their way to try to give students as many opportunities as they can to improve their grades, but nobody's increasing homework or mandatory assignments. Every teacher on our campus and all the conversations we've had are well aware of the struggles students are facing and the amount of time that they are. We can look at, they might be in class for only 45 minutes, but we know the amount of time that they're doing outside of that is still extensive. And teachers have been bending over backwards and doing everything they can. And it's, but nobody is increasing homework, no policies. In fact, teachers are the ones who are coming forward first and foremost and saying that our students need help, we need to do something. And a lot of this is driven by their feedback and their concerns for our students.
Thank you for putting a squash on this rumor. I didn't think it was true, but you just have to ask just to make sure. And again, I want to thank all the departments within Center High School for taking their time and going the extra mile to help our students. I've had firsthand conversations with a couple of your department heads, and I just want to say thank you.
And Mr. Ferguson, I wanted to clarify the reduction of graduation requirements. When I first read that, I was like, oh, I don't know about this. And then I read further and saw that it is in fact not going to be any lower than what the state graduation requirements would be, and on a case-by-case basis. So I just want to confirm that and make that part of the public conversation so that everyone is aware that we're not making it easier than what is legally allowed to graduate.
That is correct.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Ferguson?
I would
Mr.
just
Bruno?
like to comment. I'd like to comment, first of all, that I really appreciate the effort that's clearly gone into this. These are some creative solutions, and I really think you guys did a great job putting this together. What I'm wondering is, how are you going to convey this to the people, and do you have the resources, primarily counselors, I would imagine, to meet with all of the students who need this, to discuss with them what their options are?
So we have plans in place and meetings already set up for next week, depending on if everything was approved tonight, or if not, we would still be going forward with credit recovery. The counselors, and we have staff on hand who are able to make phone calls. There's classified staff who've been making phone calls in the past for engagement purposes, and we would be leaning on a lot of different staff to assist with the communications home. Counselors are aware of how many times they're going to be meeting with families to set this up, and we know it's a tough task, but they know the reason for doing it, and everybody is on board, and we're very eager to get started to get these students caught back up. We also know that with the time frame we're looking at, we're going to have a few months to be able to get the students in, where we're going to begin in mid-February, and then students who are not showing up, we're going to still have time to make sure that we get them involved and engaged. So it's going to be an ongoing process. We're not trying to contact 900 families, say, within the next few weeks. We're going to be going primarily with our seniors to get graduation requirements met, and then working our way out from there, kind of in the same idea as like a tiered, getting down to our 9th graders as we're able to meet those classes. So we're aware it's going to be a lot of phone calls, and we are ready.
Great. Thank you very much.
Okay, any more questions or comments for Mr. Ferguson? Go ahead, Nancy.
Is there anything being talked about for graduation for these seniors? They've missed everything all the way through. It breaks my heart.
Yeah, so one of the things Mr. Ferguson and I have spoken about is obviously we're optimistic, but at this point, you know, we would have the same plan that we had last year if conditions don't warrant an in-person. So I know he and his team is already talking through some of that, and you're right. Students have missed out on some great activities. I have a senior; he's missed out on those things too. So I think the staff is going to do everything they can, just like last year, to make it as special as they possibly can based on the circumstances in our current environment.
Yeah, I think we talked about yesterday where they could have student cut day and break into school.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you going to do?
It would be good to see them three-dimensionally.
Yeah, it's almost too bad we can't have some kind of function that would bring them back to the school, and even at the elementary level, to sort of reunite that school bond. Some of those kids have never been in a schoolroom in the younger grades.
Well, we've even talked about next year, we're going to find out that optimistically back on campus, half of our students would have never stepped foot on the campus.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Who would have thought? Thank you for the job you do every day.
Any other comments or questions?
There is.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we have a motion to approve and a second, and we'll take a roll call vote. Dr. Lee?
Oops, aye.
Mr. Bruno?
I'm actually going to abstain on this one.
Abstain. Okay, Mrs. Pope?
Aye.
Mrs. Anderson?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. So motion, item A, business item A has been passed. Vote 4-1. And moving on to item B, resolution number 22/2021 for facilities and operations. This is approving the expansion of Center High School onto the adjoining Center Junior High School parcel and finding such expansion exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act, and approve the filing and recordation of a notice of exemption. This resolution will allow the district to expand the Center High School campus by joining the Center Junior High School campus with the Center High School campus. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll motion to approve. I'll second.
Mr. Bruno, and do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mrs. Pope, do we have any discussion on this item?
The only thing would be Mr. Deason shared during his facilities report that this action, the big grand vision, the master plan for Center High School was ultimately to expand into the old junior high as the district was growing very rapidly. And then that was always the master plan. This action helps us because we're bringing CTE funding, different things that we can maximize that space with the ultimate goal of still bringing into there. So this action just helps us make it one continuous campus, which will benefit us for funding and different reasons.
Great. Any other discussion? So we have a motion to approve and a second for business item B. We'll take a roll call vote. Dr. Lee, sorry.
Aye.
And Mr. Bruno?
Aye.
Mrs. Pope?
Aye.
Mrs. Anderson?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Business item B is passed. Moving on to governance, business item C, COVID-19 status in our region and transitioning to Plan 2. The board will discuss the current status of COVID-19 in our region and its potential impact on our transition to our Plan 2 hybrid model. This says it's an action. I'm sorry, can I get a point of clarification from the superintendent? What exactly are we acting on?
There is no action. The only action would be is if we put it on, if circumstances had changed and there was some sort of action that needed to be taken as it relates to transitioning. What we wanted to do was put this on each meeting to discuss to see where we were. I think you guys have requested. So at this point, what we wanted to share was the adjusted case rate for the Sacramento area and kind of the region is around 48, which is, I think to get down in the red tier, you have to be below an 8 or 7 below. So we're very far away from that. The governor has actually just released recently a new plan for reopening. So we're digging into that. I think it came out last week. There's some incentive portions in that, but there's also just some new requirements. So we're updating all of our plans to reflect the new requirements. So we are ready to go in the event that we're able to go and you guys authorize us to come back into Plan 2. But at the current moment, the Sacramento County Health Department is not issuing waivers. The criteria the governor has outlined is not allowed because you need to be under 25 cases per 100,000. We're at that 48. So at this point, there's really no clear path for us to come back to school because we had not opened previously. Some other districts had reopened or schools had opened, so they were allowed to reopen or even expand in some cases. So at this point, there's not a lot on this topic other than I think, as Miss Kelly, you pointed out, it's still circulating pretty widely in our community. But right now, there is nothing for you to act on because there is no action. I would also be hesitant to say, come up with some sort of date for the future because we just don't know. I would recommend that when things start to come down, we convene at our regular meeting, or if something's coming out quicker, I would ask for a special meeting, and then we could then move forward with making a more definitive plan. We'll continue to keep this item on our agenda so we can have the discussions, and I know you all are greatly involved with watching the data, would also be involved with that. The other piece that's important with this is while we're still planning to enter this transition 2 phase, the reopening, we're ready there. We also are looking ahead at learning loss and the ability to serve students with the ability. We all know, as Mr. Ferguson had shared with his staff, they've known some kids are struggling. So, excuse me, we'll come back at a later date too and talk more specifically about our plans for learning loss as it relates to summer programs. Historically, we've run a credit recovery type program. I think this year it will be much more robust and something's offered probably at every single school site for our students, provided we can get back on campus and or some other creative ways to continue to reach. So that's all I really had on the update. If there's any questions or dialogue you guys wanted to have, I'm not sure if Ms. Hunt received any public comment. So however you want to take it from there, that's all I had, Ms. Kelly.
I do have a couple of questions actually for Mr. Jordan, Kelly, if that's okay.
Yeah, you go right ahead.
Mr. Jordan, are you available?
I am.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Mr. Jordan, since our last board meeting, I have received communication of concern about the inadequate training of our staff on distance learning and the preparation for distance learning. I know you spoke briefly last month about this and you even had support documentation, but you go through it because you made note that if anybody wants to look at it or read or get informed, this is where it's at. Could you just give a slight overview of the training that our staff has had, and are we still continuing with this training?
Yes, so we have had multiple trainings, both from SCOE staff, as well as our own staff, as well as outside vendors, on all of the different modes and different platforms that we brought in. Our teachers have had to learn a whole new way of teaching. And a lot of that has been these different platforms, electronic platforms that they've had to learn. So we've had trainings on all of those different platforms, how to utilize them in distance learning, how to further engage kids in distance learning. So we sent that out to all staff. And again, that spreadsheet that I shared last time has numerous different opportunities for staff to participate in. And the vast majority did participate in. And those are ongoing. As we see more need, then we add to those. A lot of teachers are starting to get into kind of a rhythm now, is what I'm hearing, which is fantastic. So we're trying not to add any new platforms, anything new, unless that it is requested. But the training has been ongoing. There's been a ton of training. And then again, I can share that spreadsheet with the board if you'd like, and you can see all the different things that have gone on and all the different platforms and all the different modalities.
Well, no, I don't think that's necessary. I'll just make a public note that, and if anybody does want to see the information that you shared last month, they can look at the YouTube video, and also on our what was it, February, January, what month, December, our December board packet, because it's in there. Or they can also look at the slides from last month's meeting. Thank you, Mr. Jordan. I do have another question. I'm sorry. I've had a lot for you this evening. I was told by the student health department that the PPE that we have is not appropriate or inadequate, mostly concerning our masks. They want the N95 where we have the K95. And also they have, or you ordered, or they were given smocks as opposed to a lab coat per se that has more coverage. Could you just elaborate on that a little bit, please?
Sure.
Mr. Jordan, before you do, can I just speak to the N95 question? So I don't know if any of you have tried purchasing N95 masks, but they are not available to anyone other than frontline medical staff. The KN95s, I was a little hesitant to get. However, my son-in-law, who is a first responder EMT, those are the types that they are using. So the KN95s are being used and accepted by frontline first responders. So sorry to hijack your question, but I thought that was important to share. Go ahead, Mr. Jordan.
I'm Mike Jordan, and I endorse Kelly's previous announcement. She's spot on. She's exactly right. We've tried to go through numerous vendors, and we go through, vendors that sell to nurses, sell to medical equipment. You can't get them. You can't get N95s right now. They won't sell them to you. And usually something they'll say it's on back order. They're saying no, we will not sell it to you. So
can I just say how irritating that is that we can't buy them? I mean, I just want to, it doesn't have anything to do with our meeting, but it just really ticks me off.
Agreed. We do have a handful of N95s that we were able to get. I believe it's from the state early on. The state provided us with a bunch of PPE over the summer. Some of that was the smocks, if you want to call them that were short sleeve, that kind of stuff. As soon as we found out that those were not adequate, we bought the long sleeve disposable ones. I just checked with our registered nurse yesterday. I had a couple conversations. We have 80 in supply. We made another order 2 weeks ago to get more of those in so that we have plenty of those. We have plenty of the KN95 masks. Those are the ones we can get. According again to our registered nurse, they're basically just as good as the K95s. Excuse me, the N95s, but we can't get the N95s. So we have tons of the KN95s. We have tons of gloves, shields.
Well, if they want to, they can use that N95 with a shield, right?
Absolutely.
Or KN95 with the shield.
Certainly.
Okay.
Certainly. We have more, our initial, and this is the KN95. I don't know if you can see that on the screen. It's probably, there we go. We got 150 of those initially. We got another shipment in of these big bags that are also 150 at a time. We have tons of those. Plus we have tons of the 3-ply surgical masks that the recent or California Department of Health said that's what is expected of students and staff. It's the 3-ply mask. We have tons of, I can't give the exact number. I was going to say zillions, but obviously that's an exaggeration. But we have plenty of those masks. We also bought special cots for each of our, we call them isolation rooms, so that they have kids have a place to lie down if they're dizzy, whatever, when the time comes. Mm-hmm. We also have isolation rooms set up outside of the main office in all of our school sites, because obviously if a kid is infected and hasn't had a positive test, but they're showing symptoms, we don't want them to come to the main office and expose the entire front office so that all of our admin and office staff and everyone have to go out on quarantine. That would, in effect shut our school down. That would be a very difficult situation. So those are outside of the main offices. Again, we've put out a couple times to our health staff to tell us what you need, with obviously the exception of the N95, because Miss Kelly is correct. We've tried numerous times to order them. You can't get them.
So you talked about isolation rooms, but just to reiterate, each site has an isolation room that's separate from the major population of the school. Each
Correct.
School site.
And
Okay.
actually, many sites have multiple isolation rooms because they recognize that those may fill up. Because what we have to do is when kids have any of these symptoms, which are common symptoms, you know, diarrhea, vomiting, cough, so on and so forth, you know, we have to send those kids home. That's part of the orders that we've been given from the state and from the county. And as you all know, elementary school, those are coughing, diarrheaing, vomiting. I mean, that happens on a normal year, let alone during a COVID year. So we anticipate there's going to be a lot of kids that will end up in those isolation rooms.
Thank you very much for your time.
If I could just add a couple more things, Del Rey.
Yeah.
Each of those isolation rooms and the nurses' rooms also have HEPA air sweepers in them, so they're getting an extra dose of filtration in those rooms. And then if you're really innovative and you're able to access some black market areas or whatever, I actually found a place today where we can get some N95s. So we will be increasing our supply of N95s. But as Kelly said, the KN95s will filter the same amount as the N95s out. That's why it's called a 95, because it filters 95% of the particles out. So
wonderful. Thank you, Craig. And thanks for the clarification.
And one more thing, there are two more things, and thank you to Craig Deason. Mr. Deason has done a great job of getting all this PPE to us. He's dealing with multiple vendors, dealing with the state, so on and so forth, as well as Tina Duncan in our office and Gail, who is our RN. They've been working, going through the catalogs, ordering things as well. We also have goggles. If they don't want the face mask, they can wear the goggles. And we have those, not speed guns, the temperature guns. That's not the right word, but you know, the touchless ones. Thermometers, there you go. They look like the speed gun things from the highway, but we have a ton of those as well. I think Mr. Deason ordered was like 200 or some crazy number that we have out there as well. So there is a ton of PPE.
Very good. Thank you so much for your clarification. I appreciate it, Mr. Jordan. And Mr. Deason, thank you, thank you, thank you.
I think he's camera shy.
That's all I had, Kelly.
Can I be excused from the table?
Gotta hit that mute button, sorry. Any other comments, discussion on the business item C, COVID-19 status?
I would just like to add something to what Superintendent Lair said.
Go ahead.
He mentioned that we were around 48 for our adjusted case rate. We're currently, as of this week, at 48.7 for the adjusted case rate and 54.6 for the actual case rate. Both of those numbers are up slightly from last month. So, you know, although it's seeming to be going back down after the kind of Christmas bump, the numbers are still up from where we were when we were discussing this a month ago. So I just wanted to make that point as well.
You know, also they were talking about having a third strain that's hit California especially, and we don't know what that's going to do yet. So we're nowhere near close to being out of this thing.
Nope. Okay. Any further discussion?
Miss Kelly, I do know, just as a reminder, there's some public comment that I think Mrs. Hunt has, just so you're aware.
Oh, wonderful. Let's hear it.
Can you hear me?
Mrs. Hunt? We can now.
Okay. All right. So I have 3 of them at this moment. The first one is from Louise Braden. She is asking, when will SDC classes start up in small cohorts? The next one is from Peter Brown. He says, I'm concerned that we might return to school too quickly and put our students, families, and teachers at risk of contracting COVID. I contracted COVID over the Christmas break, as well as several of my members. My family lost one of the most important people I've ever known. I don't want to see another family go through this ordeal. My son is a senior at Roseville High School, and they went back, and within 8 days, they had 14 teachers and hundreds of students at home, which made them switch back to distance learning. As a teacher in the district and that has had COVID, I'm still recovering from the symptoms and have been told they could last weeks to months. If other teachers get this, I am concerned we will not have enough substitutes to cover the need. I am also worried students could take it home to older family members. I do not want anyone to contract this, and I feel we need to wait until all students and staff are vaccinated until we go back to school. And the last one I have is from Donna H. Can the school board or superintendent provide clarification as to the expectations for virtual learning in regards to videos during live meetings? Is it now a mandate for all students to have their videos on at all times during live meetings? Some teachers are requiring it, some are not. And that is all I have at this time.
So Mr. Jordan, I'll let you come on to possibly answer the second question, but if the board's okay, the first question on the SDC classes, right now our agreement with our teachers union for our cohorts is voluntary, the staff would come back. And so we have started with those classrooms that have come back. So we continue to offer if folks want to come back to offer in person, and we do have quite a few people, and we appreciate them doing that. So they are doing some of those cohorts. So I don't have a specific date when the SDC cohort would come back, other than it's a possibility if that classroom wants to pursue that. And Mr. Jordan, do you have an answer real quick for the video cameras?
There is no district policy that video cameras have to be on. That would be a site by site or a teacher. We are not mandating that. I'm not sure if that's the question that they're asking, but it is not a district policy that student cameras must be on.
So we can communicate that with the leadership team to make sure that they understand our expectations for sure. And I know that had come up once before, and the plan was we had said, no, they don't have to be on, but we would encourage it, but there might be situations where we would not require it.
I'm just curious. I thought I read something in our distance learning playbook related to this matter. Does it address that, or did I imagine that? I thought it said that we do not require or mandate cameras to be on or recordings of lessons to be taken as well. It addressed both of those privacy concerns.
Yeah, we definitely, sorry, did I cut you off?
Nope, no, go ahead.
Okay, we definitely do not have recording at all. That would require written consent. So there is absolutely no recording. And I need to go back in, I'm clicking in. We may have addressed that in the playbook that said that it's optional for the cameras, but I need to go back in and before I say that definitively.
But I'm almost thinking the same thing, that I knew it was in there. Sorry, it seems like there's so many different things going on, but I'm almost positive that it was in there, Mr. Jordan. So we can address that and then share with individuals, because I know there's been a lot of changes over time. So.
So would it be safe to say that, Mr. Lair, your office will be following up with administrative leadership regarding this, just to clarify that so it's clear?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just
okay. So, oh, go ahead.
If it's okay, just to briefly address Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown, I am so sorry for your loss. I am sitting, I'm not going to name names. I am sitting in his office. I've been in this office 3.5 years. It is still his office. When people ask me where I work, I tell them I use his name. I considered him a mentor to me. He was a great man. I am so sorry.
Me too, Mr. Brown. I am so sorry for your loss. Thank you for sharing your story. It's much appreciated. Please accept
Mine as well. He was a wonderful, wonderful man and just a big teddy bear. I also had him out at Rolinda. Very fond memories. And I'll always have fond memories.
And on that note, since no action is going to be taken, the chair moves to table business item C. We only need a second, not a vote.
I'll second.
Mrs. Fultz, thank you. And moving on to advanced planning, item 17, few meeting dates. The regular meeting will be Wednesday, February 17th, 2021 at 6 p.m. virtual or Riles Middle School, 4747 PFB Road, Roseville, California. More than likely, this will be a virtual meeting on Wednesday, February 17th.
And that's correct, Ms.
And item,
it would be virtual until otherwise.
Okay. And 17B, suggested agenda items. Do the board members have any suggested agenda items? Does anyone else have any suggested board agenda items?
We'll call Scott if we do. I can't think of any.
You know, Mr. Jordan kind of hinted at the multi-tiered systems of support and that it would be a much larger conversation. I wouldn't mind hearing that larger conversation. It doesn't have to be at the next meeting, but certainly at some point we would love to hear about the multi-tiered systems of support.
So I can work with Mr. Jordan. We can bring back the blueprint and go over. I think I'd reshared that out with all of you again, but we could certainly go through, and because that really is the overarching net to all of the work that we're doing. So Mr. Jordan, I'll speak for you, but we'll be happy to come back in February and walk through that document. It's a living, breathing document, but it's some good stuff. So yes, happy to do that.
The presentations that were given tonight, I wouldn't mind having the slide presentation for those. It was a lot of good information.
I second that. I second that.
Our plan was to share those out with you, so we'll make sure you get those ASAP.
Perfect.
Will they be made public so everyone can access them, or were you planning to email them out?
We could email. We could also post them with underneath the packet.
The meeting notes.
We could put them with
I think that would be great.
Great. Good idea, Mr. Bruno. There's no reason to continue closed session, so do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second.
I'll second.
I'll second. Mr. Bruno, thank you. General consent?
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you so much, everybody. Great meeting.